The Washington Commanders are still in the hunt. A top five pick in the NFL draft. What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's Rio Robinson back with the latest and greatest on the Rambling with Rio YouTube channel, where we ramble about the Washington Commanders. Today is Monday, November 27th, and we're about 4 days finally recovered from the slaughter on Thanksgiving Day up at AT&T Stadium against the Dallas Cowboys, where Washington bit the axe 45-10 versus our arch nemesis. Put it in parentheses, put it in bunny ears, put it in quotation marks, because it's been not much of a rivalry, seeing as that we haven't been relevant for the last 30 years or so. But moving on from that, it felt like a bye week yesterday, didn't it? We didn't have a game yesterday. You know how peaceful Sunday is to just sit back and just let NFL Red Zone do its thing and run all the games. Hope NFL Red Zone's doing all right. They had an awkward moment where Scott Hansen was standing on business and continuing his broadcast while alarms and sirens were going off, evacuating the Red Zone studios. Hope they're all right there. Back to football being played. It was a day of a lot of nasty football. There was like one good game yesterday, and it was a classic, the Bills versus the Eagles. But other than that, it was a bunch of nasty ass football. It looked a lot like the mediocre football that Tom Brady referenced when he was on ESPN last week. And he talked about how the league, they don't develop young talent anymore, and the product on the field looks terrible. It looked like it yesterday. But most importantly, the teams Washington needed to win yesterday, the Titans and the Giants, both won. And as you can see it here on the Tankathon draft order, the Commanders currently sit top 5 in the NFL draft, a top 5 pick. Another thing to add on the litany of resources that our new GM and new head coaching staff will have to work with in the 2024 offseason. Top 5 pick, 90 million plus in cap space, about 20 expiring contracts to get off the books. The people coming in to form this roster will get to form it with clay and built this team in their vision. And while some people are patient and trying to temper their excitement because they've seen it and done it here in Washington, I'm letting y'all know we've never done it correctly here in Washington. We've never thoroughly sought out a fully fleshed out organizational structure on the front office side and let those people then choose the head coach, and it all builds in lockstep. We've never done so. We've never done it without the meddlesome ways of our former owner, Dan Snyder. He got in the way or had his fingerprints on everything that's happened in this franchise. Scott McCloughan was the puppet of Bruce Allen and Dan Snyder. Literally, the only guy we hired properly in the last 25 years was Marty Schottenheimer, and he immediately turned culture around and wanted power, and Dan and Vinny Serrato, crazy eyes, got him out of here with the quickness. We've never seen this team built the right way. I could not think of a more beautiful way for Ron to send off this team is for us to have a top 5 pick in his last year. He came here with the number 2 overall pick. And he's going to leave here with the 5th overall pick. For those counting, that's not progress. That's not progress in over 4 years. But we thank him for his endeavors. And for those saying, Rio, why are you talking about a top 5 pick? The season's not done yet. There's still more. I'm going to hold you. I'm going to stop you right there, Chief. There's 5 games left versus the Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, the LA Rams, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Cowboys again, who spanked our ass. Looking at it logically and logistically, we're not beating the Miami Dolphins. Not only are we not beating them, we're going to have to relive the victory because, we're going to have to relive the defeat because HBO cameras will be in town next week. For those who don't know, Miami Dolphins are the in-season Hard Knocks edition on the HBO Films documentary channel. And they will be at FedEx Field next week. For those of you who will be there in fandom, let's show up and show out for our team. We know what the results going to be. Moving on. Bye week. We don't have to take a W or L, but we will be draft pick watching that week. And then we go up to LA to play the Rams. Matt Stafford's going to carve this defense up. They're still playing for something. They're a game out of the wild card spot. Then on Christmas Eve, we're going to watch the return of the greatest anti-vaxxer, Aaron Rodgers, with his noodle ass Achilles, going to carve us up, and their defense is going to put our receivers in straitjackets. And then we got the former generational talent and company coming down on New Year's Eve, the San Francisco 49ers, who will be vying and playing for the number one seed in the NFC against the Philadelphia Eagles. They will be trying to get it. They'll be playing for something. And then we got the Cowboys to finish the year. That's probably the most winnable game on the schedule because Dallas would have then wrapped up the wild card fifth seed, and they can't get any higher or any lower, so they have no reason to play. They don't even have a reason to play Cooper Rush. They'll probably do their experimental game like we did with Sam Howell last year. They'll probably send Trey Lance's undeveloped ass out there to get a litmus test on his progress since joining the team. There is one, maybe two victories left on the schedule. And to be perfectly honest, Washington would be best suited losing out at 4-13 and picking potentially top 3, at minimum top 4 in a draft with at least 4 can't miss prospects, 5 if you count both tackles. I'm looking at the draft like this: Maserati, Marvin Harrison, Drake May, Caleb Williams, if the new GM wants to go the quarterback route. But if he wants to start off the build with a stalwart Trent Williams-esque left tackle, Olu Fashanu out of DC, Penn State left tackle, Joe Alt, Notre Dame, stalwart, big Joe Thomas type boy. Those are the players you're aiming for. Those are the 5 marquee names in the NFL draft. And you want to start your build off with one of those names. And for those saying, yes, you said Sam's the franchise quarterback. I think Sam has all the ability and potential to do that. But here's the thing, logistically speaking. I'm not working for the team. You aren't working for the team. And a new GM taking this job should have the reins and the autonomy to make any call he'd like to with the roster. Let me tell you what Dan Snyder would do and how we should differentiate from how we used to do business for the last 25 years. Dan Snyder would say, Sam Howell is my golden goose. You have to accept this job under stipulations that you have to get Sam right. You gotta develop Sam Howell to be my quarterback. But here's how Josh Harrison company should do it. We like Sam. We like what's on the roster. But if you take this job here, you can do whatever the fuck you'd like to with the roster, the coaching staff, everything. You have full reins to make whatever call you need to. Sam's on contract for the next 2 years for pennies. So he's going to be on the roster regardless. Do what you like with the quarterback position. Do what you like with the roster. That is how real teams do business. The Eagles acquired Jalen Hurts while Carson Wentz was still their golden goose. Things happen that way sometimes. It's the way the league goes, and I love Sam Howell. But the next GM can do whatever he'd like with any of the players on the roster. Don't marry yourself to any of them because they may not be here for the long run. But Washington has a chance to really do this shit right. Top 5 pick. Purgatory, the middle of the pack. Bad teams are rewarded with elite players in the draft. Good teams are rewarded with tickets to the playoff, tickets to the dance. Middling teams, there's no progress. You're stuck in quicksand. You're not even descending or ascending. You are stuck in place. You're stuck in pause, and there's nowhere or no good to be found out of being consistently inconsistent, stuck in the middle of the league. The top 5 of that draft entices me so much. And what Josh Harrison company, while I was saying for weeks I needed my pound of flesh, I needed my head on a spike, I think I'm starting to appreciate their patient, pragmatic demeanor. Look at the owner in Carolina, Dave Tepper. Dave Tepper just made today Frank Reich the first coach in NFL history to be fired in back-to-back seasons. He was fired by the Colts last year. He was fired by the Carolina Panthers today after a 1-10 start. See, the rumors and swirlings out of Carolina are that Frank Reich loved C.J. Stroud, and the owner, David Tepper, who is new Dan Snyder minus the allegations, told him to take Bryce Young. Bryce Young was his guy. Bryce Young was his son-like character. He wanted to hand the keys to the franchise. Frank Reich and Josh McCown loved C.J. Stroud, and he forced a quarterback on them. Gave him no weapons. Their biggest free agent addition was bum-ass Miles Sanders. They got him throwing to 100-year-old Adam Thielen, C.J. Chark, and Bamas like that. The boy got no protection up front. And they stripped Frank Reich from play calling duties, gave him back, and now sent him the boot. David Tepper has now fired Ron Rivera, Matt Rule, and Frank Reich in his tenure as owner. There's this thing going around that he's fired 5 head coaches since he's been there. That is incorrect. Interim coaches don't count. Interim coaches are just holding down the fort to the end of the season. So Steve Wilkes and Perry Fuel, y'all were not head coaches. Y'all were interim head coaches. But if you want to count his dumbass soccer team, Charlotte FC, yes, he has fired 5 head coaches. But nobody watches that shit. So why are we, the 10 people that watch the MLS, why are we comparing that with professional football? Get that the hell out of here. I want to throw smut on the names of people who deserve it, but let's not add extra smut on this guy's name. He is very rash. He seems irrational. He forced a quarterback on a guy and made him bite the bullet for the choice he forced on him. You live in the bed. You live and lie in the bed that you make. David Tepper will do so, and David Tepper will have to pay his next head coach as handsomely as teams pay quarterbacks and receivers, because who wants to sign up for a burning building? And it's music to my ears as a Washington fan that we are no longer the burning building. We're actually doing business the right way. We actually have guys that's willing to wait till end of season to shelve everybody and build professionals. Josh Harris has shown in every organization that he owns, he's willing to pay top dollar for the guys that run it, for the guys that coach, and he gets out of the way of the football people. He's going to get out of the way of the football people. He's going to hire a GM and an executive vice president of football operations, and he's going to get the fuck out the way. And he's going to work on shit like the stadium project, the new headquarters, the rebrand. If he wants to do that again, I don't give a fuck about it because I don't care what this team is called. Call them whatever. I'll be at the stadium on Sundays. Real fans don't care about that shit. That's casual fan shit. Anyways, moving on to the GM conversation. What led me to a very interesting, my guy Burgundy Blog, shout out to Burgundy Blog on Twitter. Very, very polarizing amongst the fan base here in DC. He usually puts 2 and 2 together, and he is plugged in, whether you want to believe it or not. He knows people within this organization. And he put out a tweet yesterday about a very highly sought after executive that could be Washington's GM in waiting. Ian Cunningham, assistant GM of the Chicago Bears, is the name he's pointed at. He put out a tweet that said, got a friend of a friend kind of tip about Harris's front office plan. Root source is an agent, no names, but some clues which I applied in developing a new hunch for GM shortlist. Ian Cunningham, for what it's worth. Ian Cunningham is the brother you see below. That is Ryan Pohl's right-hand man in Chicago. Spent plenty of years helping build that Philadelphia Eagles roster and was one of the names in the draft room clamoring for Jalen Hurts during his time in Philadelphia. And my guy Resh Manuel, who is like become the Dick Tracy of Washington, connect the dots on Twitter. He found 2 very clear connections from Ian Cunningham to our current ownership group. Resh said, Ian Cunningham is slightly regarded and notably spent several years in Baltimore with Commanders' current senior VP of football strategy, analytics guy, Eugene Shen. The guy we just hired to be our analytics guy has worked with him, and he's worked under Ozzie Newsome. Love that name. Also, the son of a noted NBA agent whose firm's clients did not include Magic Johnson, but many of his peers. Additionally, that firm's founder and Ian Cunningham's uncle, tennis legend Arthur Ashe, brought the City Open to D.C., which Commanders limited partner Mark Ean owns at the moment. And there's a connection to Elton Brand as well, who's the current front office member in Josh Harris's Philadelphia Sixers. Connect the dots all you like. This is one of the more highly sought after executives in the league. He turned down the Arizona Cardinals GM job last year. He interviewed for it and said, nah, what Bidwell and company are doing over there is not my style. I'll wait for a better opening. And what better opening than here in Washington with so much cap space, a potential franchise quarterback on the roster, new aggressive and sensible ownership that are not going to immediately press the button if it doesn't work out overnight. A roster you can mold because there's expiring contracts all around it. What better situation is there? Washington is a destination again, baby, whether you want to realize it or not. Ian Cunningham is the guy who works the phones for the Chicago Bears. He conducts the trades on draft night. He conducts the trades during the deadline. Ian Cunningham may have just done himself a favor if he'd already had a little backdoor tamper conversation with Josh Harris. He threw a second for Montez Sweat over here at the trade deadline. I'm sure he's mapped out the situation, and we can't legally interview guys until the season ends, which is why Ronald's still here and why Martin Mayhew and company are still here. But we know how business is done. I know y'all have watched Billions, Succession, all of that shit. Business is done over the dinner table, at the golf course, behind the scenes, and it happens way before it's legally allowed to happen. Ian Cunningham may be the guy. It may be Alec Hallaby from the Philadelphia Eagles. It may be Andy Weil from the Pittsburgh Steelers. It may be Adam Peters from the San Francisco 49ers. It may be Brent Tillis and or Mike Borgonzi of the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to do a video about all the candidates, but I'm saving that for the right moment when the season is done. The current context of the season, all that matters is the development of Sam Howell and just how high can we pick in the 2024 NFL draft. Pick your poison, the top 5 names in this draft. You got whatever you're looking for. You want can't miss wide receiver prospect, Marvin Harrison Jr., Maserati Marv. You want a can't miss quarterback prospect. The only 2 I have faith in this class are Caleb Williams and Drake May. You want one of the bookend stalwart left tackles to start building the trenches again, to be like the Trent-led line that we had before. Olu Fashanu, however you want to say it, DC boy, or Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. Those are one of the 5 names you need to leave round 1 with if you're Washington. There's also another factor. Somebody could want one of those guys badly enough, or one of the other quarterbacks if you want to reach for Bo Nix, a Michael Penix, a Jaden Daniels. Somebody may be wanting to fly up the board and trade into our spot. That is why it is so magnifyingly important that Washington finishes the season in the top 5, because the top 5 gives you complete flexibility to do whatever the fuck it is that you'd like. And a GM should want to come into this situation. I imagine the most sought after jobs will be our job and the Chargers' job. Dean Spanos over there in LA, he's cheap. He's probably going to make things done. He's probably not going to make a splash unless he goes and brings in Bill Belichick or somebody. But whoever Washington wants to run the front office, and whoever Washington wants to be the head coach, who needs to be hired by the front office and not the owner, they will have their choice at such, and I believe they will get whoever they want. Whether that's Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, or if they want to go defense, Mike McDaniel. Whether they want to make a splash and go get Jim Harbaugh. I want a younger coach, but I would understand it. Whatever this front office and ownership group in lockstep want to do to this roster, this coaching staff, do it. We've never seen things done the right way in over 30 years here in Washington. So we don't get to sit back and complain at how things are done right now. Watch this shit get shaped like clay and hold them accountable if it doesn't work out. Josh Harris, you never get a second chance at a first impression. This first building of this franchise is very important, and it would be lovely if you hit it out the park and hired the right people to do so. And I hope those people are picking in the top 5 of the 2024 NFL draft, where the Washington Commanders currently sit. Even if the Bears win tonight, they will still sit at the 4th pick because they own the strength of schedule tiebreaker over the Commanders. So we will not be moving up this week, but with another loss coming up on the schedule, then a bye week, we may be sitting at 4 and staring at 3 by the next time we see the field after Miami when we go up to SoFi Stadium to play the Los Angeles Rams. That's all I got for right now. Hail to the Washington Commanders. Better days are ahead for the first time, and we're going to watch this thing get built up from top to bottom the correct way. That's all I got for right now. Deuces.